Welcome to lecture 2 on course circuit theory. Let us continue from the last class. In the last class we have stated our objectives and we have seen what contents we will be going to discuss in this particular course. Okay, so in this lecture we will have our discussion on the Maxwell's equation. So why we have to study the Maxwell's equation, that let me tell you in brief. Basically, an electric circuit is a mathematical model of a real physical electrical systems. Okay, and we know the laws of electromagnetic fields basically governs the electrical behavior of an actual electrical systems. So these laws, that is the laws of electromagnetic fields, will be encoded in the form of 4 Maxwell equations. And basically circuit theory is an approximation of this electromagnetic theory. Okay, so basically, as we know, the origin of electrical magnetic field is a charge, and the effect of charge is filled by a quantity called electrical field. However, when the same charges we will kept in motion, then it will constitute a current, and presence of current is filled by a quantity called magnetic field. So current can be taken as the origin of magnetic field and charge can be taken as the origin of electrical field. Okay, so let us discuss on the Maxwell equation. So in order to start with, basically there are 2 ways to look at mathematical equations. First is treat mathematical equations as are the mathematical postulates, and the physical laws are the verification of this mathematical postulates. Okay, or other way, we have suppose the physical laws and try to write the mathematical equations appropriately to represent this physical laws. So both have their merits. Okay, so in order to understand the mathematical or 2 Maxwell equations, basically we will have the review on the some vector calculus terms. So in order to start with, we will just have a discussion on the vector calculus terms, and then we will look the Maxwell's equation in detail. Okay, so first we will see the scalar product. What is scalar product or dot product? So basically dot product, we know it is the dot product between 2 vectors a bar and b bar. Okay, and dot product is always, we know, the scalar quantity. Then next term is your vector product. So vector product we can call it as a cross product, and the cross product, okay, let me tell you, suppose I have the vector a bar and b bar, and if I would like to obtain the dot product, suppose my a bar, the elements are suppose x1, x2, x3, and b bar, the elements are say y1, y2 and y3. So if I would like to do the dot product between this, so a bar dot b bar, that I can simply do the point to point or element wise multiplication. So x1 into xy1 plus x2 into y2 plus x3 into y3. Okay, so what it will be, x1 y1 plus x2 y2 plus x3 y3, and with this I will get the scalar quantity. Okay, whereas this is basically my dot product. Now let us have the vector product. That also we can call it as a cross product and represent by the sign this. So if I would like to do the cross product or the vector product between a bar and b bar, and suppose let me write in general, suppose a bar, let me write as with the 3 components, that is, let's say this vector represent in 3 dimensions. So let me have the component of 3 dimension x, y, z, and these are my unit vectors x cap, y cap and z cap, and let me write the a vector as the ax component of it plus second component of y is ay plus third component is suppose az. Okay, Fine. Similarly, I can write b vector in this way. Suppose bx is in the x component, by is my y component, and bz is my z component. Okay. Now if I would like to do the cross product between a bar and b bar, then how generally we used to calculate? We used to calculate with the determinant, which is x hat, y hat, z hat is the first row, second is the component of a bar, ax, ay, az, and third will be bx, by, and bz, and then I'll get the x hat, y hat, z hat components. So that's why it is called as the vector product. Okay, and we know the properties that if I will do the dot product between a bar and b bar, I'll get it b bar into a bar. But if I'll do the cross product between a bar and b bar, it will not be as b bar cross a bar, but it will be the reverse sign of b bar cross a bar. So these are the two important properties of the dot product and the vector product. Okay, now once we know this, then we should know what is the differential operator basically. And if I am talking in terms of vectors, every vector has a magnitude and direction at some point. Okay, so magnitude of vector will represent me the strength of vector, right? Now what we are studying, basically we are studying we would like to know the electrical and magnetic field. So we know that the electrical and magnetic fields basically are the vector fields, and if it is a vector field, we know what is vector field. Vector field is the space where quantities will be represented by vector at that particular location. For example, if I am consider the flow of liquid, so at each point we can represent the vector by its strength and direction of the flow. Okay, so similarly in electrical and magnetic field also, which will be like your space, and the electrical field and magnetic field will be generally represented by vectors, and that vectors will be having the different magnitudes and orientation in that particular field. So we should know some operations on the field which we can do it. Okay, so basically the differential operator is the most generally used operator in it. So first discuss the gradient operator, and which will be represented by the symbol del, and is called as the gradient operator of the scalar field. So basically gradient operator of a scalar field is used to measure the variation of scalar field, and it gives me totally the vector field. For example, if we'll take the temperature variation around me, for example, if we'll consider the above the surface of earth, okay, and I would like to know the temperature distribution. So if we will measure the temperature horizontally, then what will happen, there may not be much variation. But if I will measure the temperature variation vertically, then what will get, I will get it the maximum change. So gradient operator will be used to measure the change of variation in that particular direction. So if it is a 3 dimension, and if let me take it the x, y and z, this will be perpendicular with each other. All x axis, y axis and z axis are perpendicular with each other. So let me define the gradient operator in 3 dimensions. So what I can do, and suppose I have some unit vectors which will represent the direction of the vector field. So del I can represent as the gradient operator I can measure. If I would like to measure the change in the x direction, then I will write d by dx in that particular direction x hat, plus d by dy in that particular direction y hat, plus d by dz in that particular direction z cap. Okay. And now suppose I have a vector f in this 3 dimension, which will be f of x, y, z. So I would like to measure the rate of change. So can I calculate the gradient of this vector f? So gradient of vector f can be calculated using df by dx in x direction plus df by dy in y direction plus df by dz in particular z direction. So it gives me the rate of change in x direction, this gives me the rate of change in y direction. Similarly, this will give me the rate of change in z direction. Okay, so suppose I have this again, one more thing, that is f bar is my vector which will be represented in 3 dimension, that is x, y and z. So this also vector I can write as fx in x component. So fx will be the x hat component of f bar plus fy will be the y hat component of f bar plus fz will be the z cap component of f bar. So this is my differential operator. Again, this I can define into two different operators, that is differential operator. One is called the divergence operator. Why I am studying this? Because this will be required in order to understand the Maxwell equation, and this is the reason that we should know these operators. Okay, so divergence operator and one is curl operator. Okay, so basically what is the divergence operator? Divergence operator will be, it's like a dot product. It is the dot product between the gradient and the vector which I would like to calculate it. Okay, so this divergence operator can be defined as the dot product between gradient with the vector f bar. And how can I write it? Gradient is, I can write as d dx of fx plus d dy of fy and d dz of fz. So this will be defined the scalar product. Basically divergence operator is as good as the scalar product, and curl operator is like your cross product of the gradient operator with the vector f bar. Okay, so how can I calculate the curl of vector f bar? This will can be calculated using the determinant which will be giving me the x component, y component, z component, and this what are the three components of gradient, that is d by dx, d by dy, d by dz. Similarly, what are the components of f bar? It will be fx, fy and fz. Okay, and then we can write the component, that is x hat will be the determinant of it minus y hat, this determinant, plus z hat will be this. So it will be giving me the vector product. Okay, fine. So now with this let us now actually imagine how is the divergence operator and curl operator. Okay, so for example, consider the volume or a box. Okay, and vector field is like your fluid. So consider a small box or small volume, and I would like to calculate the total net flow of fluid from that particular box, from that box or per unit box volume. Then that quantity is called as basically the divergence of vector. So what divergence will be giving me? The divergence will be giving me the total net flow of the flood, or if I'm saying that quantity as a flood, so it will be giving me the total net flow of from the box per unit volume. Okay, so this will be giving me the divergence operator. Okay, and regarding the curl vector or the curl operator, what it will give is like a rotating, or as the name suggests, it's like a curling. Curling means what? If I would like to give the example, for example, consider we have a field like the surface of river, and we will try to keep some object on river. Okay, so what will happen? Because of the differential flow of the layer of water, there will be some kind of rotation effect I can observe on the surface of river, and that is the effect captured by this curl operator. Okay, so curl is a quantity which represent the net rotation which will be created per unit area of surface, and this will be given by basically the curl thing. Now question is what kind of, because we are studying the electrical and magnetic fields, so what kind of field will be giving me the divergence and what kind of field giving me the curl. Okay, so for example, if let's say I have the some field maybe like this, and in that field, okay, some field I have, and in that field let me represent the quantities with the vector. So suppose these are the vectors of the same magnitude. For example, in this particular row, this is with this magnitude and this magnitude is same. Remember, this is x1, say magnitude are same. This is also x2, x2, x2. Okay, so like this field is there and the flow is something like this. Okay, then somewhere like this. Okay, this is my field and vectors are represented this way with same magnitudes in x and variable magnitudes in y. And now suppose if I'll place some small box in this, so what will happen if I'll go horizontally, there will not be the variation, but if I'll go vertically, what will happen, there will be the variation. And what will happen, because of that variation in y direction or in vertical direction, there will be the rotation captured. Okay, so this kind of thing will be captured by curl, so there will be the rotation of this small box. Okay, so this kind of field represent the curl operation. And regarding the divergence operation, suppose I have the field like this, suppose flow of fluid is something like this, and then I have the vector quantities represented like this with different magnitudes in x, whereas y magnitude same. So in this, what I can observe that there will be this variation in x direction. So if I'll keep some box here, so what will happen, it will move horizontally. Okay, so this will be the divergence operation, or this effect will be captured by the divergence operation. Okay, now we know now the divergence and the curl, what it gives. Now in order to again to get it, to understand it again, we will be going to learn the equations, and to get it that we are again using the integral operators basically. So there are two integral operations, we know, that is, one is your contour, second is related with the surface, and third related with the volume. Okay, so contour basically is your single integration. Okay, this is called as the line integral. Surface will be your double integration, and this is called as this is your line integral. Okay, this is your double integration called the surface integral, and the volume will be your triple integral. Okay, so called as the volume integral. So its answer will be always scalar quantity. For example, if I will give the brief on it. Suppose I have the contour something like this, which is open. Let me suppose this is, I have the contour something like this, which is open. Let me call C, and say this is my vector, say represented with a bar. Okay, and now suppose I have a vector a bar represented like this, and would like to find the contour integral, and which is open. So what is the procedure? Procedure is first to do the dot product of vector a bar with some length, depends, suppose small length dl I am considering here. So okay, so some length segment you consider, integrate it, and some sum up and then what we do, you take the next length, do the dot product between a bar with dl bar, sum up, and that way, and do the same process for this contour. So you will be able to find out the contour integration. So how to represent that? If I would like to find out the contour integration, if it is open, it will be giving me the dot product between the vector a bar with the small segment dl bar. Okay. So this is my open contour. Okay. And now if I would like to find out for the closed contour, so what it will be, here integral, you make it like this and find out a bar with dl bar. So this operator is for closed contour. Okay. Similarly, for the surface integral, suppose I have the surface like this, okay, and this is my vector a bar, and say this is the infinitesimally small area dA bar, and it moves in this particular unit direction n hat. Okay, so a bar is suppose my vector field and dA is your infinitesimally small area, and this n hat is the vector perpendicular to area where the area is moving. Okay, so which is again basically the unit vector. So we can do the surface integral if it is open. Then if I would like to find out the surface integral, so what it do, you do this, you do the dot product between a bar with small area dA bar, you will get it some value, and then you change the, or you vary this area, okay, and do it for all the surface. So if you sum up, you will be getting the total integral or total surface integral. Okay, this is for open surface, and if it is for closed surface, then what used to be do, you just put at this operator, so it will be giving me the closed surface. Similarly, you can do it for the volume also. Okay, now with this knowledge, let us now represent the two fields called electrical field and magnetic field. And magnetic field. Okay, so basically what is electric field and what is magnetic field? So we know that there is a charge, and that the charge place one more charge in the vicinity of this charge. So what will happen there? We know that then it experiences a force, and that effect is called basically the electrical effect, electrical field. So in electrical field, charges are stationary or stable. When basically we place the charges in motion, then because of rate of change of charges, current will produce, and that effect will be called as a magnetic effect. Okay, so if charges are in motion, then generate current, and that effect is nothing but your magnetic field effect. Okay, so if charges accelerate, then it gives both electrical and magnetic field. Okay, so here quantities are charges, then current, then your electrical field and your magnetic field. Okay, so the relation among this quantities basically has been established by the Maxwell equation. Okay, so before going it into, let us define one by one. So electrical field, generally let me represent with E bar, and its unit will be volts per meter. Volts per meter. So it is a quantity, and we know that when there are the charges, so in the some charges are placed in the vicinity of it, so there will be force introduced, and that is the effect called the electrical field, and is again that effect is depending on the medium. Okay, but here one more quantity called the electrical displacement vector, called electric displacement vector. It is not depending on the medium, it is totally independent on medium where the electric field is generated, because as medium changes, for example medium, if I am saying the vacuum free space or some dielectric, then what happened, electric field vary, means there will be different type of forces will experienced in different medium. But there what will happen, electrical displacement vector will not be depending on medium. So I can write electrical displacement vector will be equal to your epsilon, which will be giving me the permittivity, into electrical field, that is E bar. Okay. So as permittivity will change, electrical field will change, or electrical field will change according to your permittivity will change. Okay. But D bar, that is the electric displacement vector, will not change, or it will not depending on the medium. Okay. So that is the thing. And again, if I would like to know the relation between the electrical field with the voltage, so that relation is given by electrical field E bar, which will be equal to the divergence of voltage, I mean gradient of voltage. Okay. So if I know the potential at some point, then I will take the gradient, and the negative, if I do, it gives me the electrical field. Okay. At some particular point, note that. So this is regarding the electric field. If it is the magnetic field, then we know what is the origin of magnetic field. The origin of magnetic field is the current. Okay. So for example, suppose if I have a current carrying wire, and how much amount of current is flowing it, and if I would like to measure the electrical field at this particular point, okay, suppose this is the pole, and what will happen, suppose this is the distance r cap. Okay. And let me take it some small segment, that is dl bar. Okay. Now I would like to measure the electrical magnetic field. Okay. So how to measure? It will be giving me the magnetic field strength. It will be the incremental value of magnetic field due to small current in the element. So this will be dH, we know that is represented with I dl bar into r bar and divided by 4 pi r square. This is in ampere per meter magnetic field. Okay. So this is the magnetic field strength. Okay. And here we observe that it is not depending on the media. Okay. Fine. So what will happen? Magnetic flux density, again we can know that it depends on the this H will depend on the medium where it applies. Okay. And we know the relation between the magnetic field strength with the magnetic flux density as mu into H bar, where mu stands for your permeability. And what is the unit of B bar? The unit of magnetic field density is Tesla, or I can call it as Weber per meter square. Okay. So basically magnetic field density doesn't depend on the medium. Okay. So density of magnetic lines of force, which will be giving me at a particular location. Okay. So with this, what is magnetic field? Basically it will be the force experienced by the magnetic charges, or let me call it magnetic poles. Okay. If it will place in the vicinity of current. Okay. So this is regarding the magnetic field. Now let us define the Ohm's law in short, and then we'll start with the Maxwell's equation. So in general, Ohm's law gives me the relation between the conduction current density and electric field. So conduction current density represented with J bar. So suppose this is the current conductor, and here this is my conduction current density. So J bar is the current flowing per unit area. Okay. So current is flowing because you are having some electrical field, okay, and which will be related with the potential. So I'm not looking at the IR circuit perspective, but I'm looking at the field perspective. So it will give me the relationship between the electric field, which is driving this current, okay, which is driving this current density, and that I can represent as J bar, that is electric conduction, or I can call it as conduction current density, which will be equal to sigma into E bar, and E bar is your electric field, and sigma will be giving me the conductivity of medium. And in terms of circuit perspective, it will be simple, V is equal to IR. So this is also some important relation to understand the Maxwell equation. Okay, now with this understanding, let us start with the Maxwell's equation. So basically there are the physical laws which will be Gauss law, Ampere law, Faraday's law. So Maxwell, what it does, it has compiled these laws, and the compilation of these physical laws are nothing but your Maxwell's equation. Okay, so we know there are four Maxwell equations. One is called the Gauss law for electrostatic field. Second is the Gauss law for magnetism. Then third equation is Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, and fourth called modified Ampere law. Okay, now let us discuss these equations in somewhat detail. So first let us start with the Gauss law. So basically it governs the relationship between the displacement vector or electric field and the charge distribution. Basically that is called Gauss law. What it states that the total electric displacement coming out of a closed surface is equal to net charges enclosed by that surface. What does it mean? Suppose I have the closed surface like this, and there are the charges present in it, something like this. Okay, and this is the electric displacement coming out from this closed surface. Okay, so now what is to be done? I would like to compute the total electrical displacement coming out from the closed surface should be equal to the, or it will be the relationship between the total electrical displacement coming out from that closed surface with the total amount of charges enclosed by this closed surface. Okay, so suppose this is my surface called S, and there will be charge densities represented by rho. Suppose rho gives me the charge densities. Okay, and now if I would like to compute it, or if I would like to write it mathematically, then let me assume, in order to represent the surface, first let me assume one small infinite simple area dA bar, and it is moving in let's say in this direction n cap, which is the unit vector. And suppose I would like to compute this d bar, which will be giving me the direction of the displacement vector. So the displacement vector coming out from this small area dA will be, now what it will be, equal to the dot product between d bar with small area dA. Okay, so the dot product between the electrical displacement vector with the infinite simply small area dA will be nothing but the component of displacement vector. Okay, this component of displacement vector, but it is in normal direction, or it is in unit direction n cap. Okay, so once I get this for one small area, then what I will do, then I will add small areas and integrate over surface, which will be giving me the net displacement vector coming out. Okay, and rho will be your volume charge density, or it will be the density of charges which will be inside the volume, and it will be represented, that unit is coulomb per meter cube. Okay, so now if I'll add all charges inside the volume, then I will get the total charges inside volume. Okay, so now let us write it mathematically everything. So first, integration of the displacement vector over total surface area, that is d bar A, can be written as the integral of the component of d bar with the small area dA bar. It will be giving me the total outward displacement Okay, and let us find out the total charges present in it. So it will be inside the volume, so that can be represented with triple integration with rho, that is charge density, with small volume dV. Okay, and Gauss state that it should be equal. So what can be done? So total outward displacement inside the closed surface, which will be d bar into dA, should be equal to the total number of charges present inside the small volume dV. Okay, so now what we will do, so if I look left and right side, this is not at all compatible. So what I'll do, I will use the divergence theorem, such that, what is the use of divergence circle theorem? It will be able to convert the surface integral into volume integral, or vice versa. Okay, so now I will use the divergence theorem to convert the surface integral to volume integral, and that can be written as the volume integral, and that has to be represented with the divergence, and divergence is nothing but the dot product between the gradient with the d bar. It will be with small volume dV, and which will be equal to the right side, that is the total charges present inside it over V. So now this is equal, so I can make it on one side triple integral over V. So it will be giving me the gradient with the d bar, which is nothing but the divergence, minus rho for small volume dV will be equal to 0. Okay, so it means that this is 0. It means that this must be 0 for any arbitrary volume that can happen when the integrand is identically 0. Okay, so this essentially gives me the gradient, dot product of gradient with electrical displacement d bar will be equal to the total the charge density, or total number of charges enclosed by that surface. So this will be my differential form, and this is basically the pointwise relation, and this is the Gauss law states that the total net displacement coming out from the closed surface will be equal to total charges present inside of that closed surface. Now this also I can write in terms of electrical field, and we know the relation between the electrical field with the displacement vector like this. So this also can be written as gradient with epsilon E bar, which will be equal to rho, and the gradient of electrical field will be equal to the total charge density per media, that is the permittivity. Okay, so this is basically the homogeneous medium where epsilon is not a function of space. So this gives me the Gauss law. Now let us define the next equation, that is called the Gauss law for magnetic field. So this is also same as of electrostatic what we have derived in the first, that is, now consider the total or net magnetic flux which will be coming out from the closed surface is equal to net magnetic charges, or in this magnetic field, instead of charges I will use the magnetic poles which will be enclosed by the surface. Okay, so in this what we know, that there are no isolated magnetic poles, that is south and north, but magnetic poles will found in pair. So no matter what volume I will take, I will always have the equal number of poles in pair, or I will always have the poles in pair, and that will be equal number of north and south poles. So with this poles in pair, so what will be happen, net magnetic charges inside the surface will always be equal to 0. So there is no net charge enclosed by the closed surface. So what is the statement for the Gauss law for the magnetic field is that, or magnetism is that, the net amount of magnetic flux coming out from the surface will always be equal to 0, because there are no net charges inside the surface, or there are the net charges inside the surface, or net magnetic poles inside the surface will always be equal to 0. So how can I write that? This will be, suppose, magnetic field density, and suppose small area I will take a dA bar, which will be moving in this unit direction, Okay, so this will be gives me the dot product between B bar with dA bar, and it is closed surface, and basically if it is the case, then it will be equal to 0 because there are no net charges inside the surface. And then apply the divergence theorem to convert this surface integral into volume integral. So what will happen, it will be giving me the divergence of this B bar with over small volume, and that will be equal to 0. And if it is true for any arbitrary area, means it will be true, identically true for any kind of arbitrary area, identically equal to 0, means the gradient of this it's the dot product of gradient with the magnetic field density will be always equal to 0. Means what, the net amount of magnetic flux coming out from surface will be always equal to 0. So divergence of the magnetic field will be equal to 0. This is basically the second law for the magnetic field. Okay. Now next we'll see the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Okay, so it relates the electrical and magnetic field. So let me first read out the statement. It states that the total EMF around the closed loop, suppose I'll take it this wire as a closed loop. So it states that the total EMF around the closed loop is equal to rate of change of magnetic flux which has been enclosed by that loop, and direction of this electromotive force or EMF is such that magnetic field produced by current because of this EMF opposes the original magnetic field. So what it will be, suppose this is my closed loop and there will be the field flux, magnetic flux density is coming out like this. Okay, suppose there is electric field E bar, this is my contour C, and let me take it small area, infinite simply small area, and it is moving in this direction. And in order to do mathematical, let me take it the small length segment like this. Okay, so what it state that the total EMF around this closed loop will be equal to rate of change of this magnetic flux which has been enclosed by this loop, and direction will be the negative of it because the magnetic field produced by the current will be negative because the EMF opposes the original magnetic field. This is the reason basically. Okay. So this is B bar is magnetic flux density, and from that I can find out the total flux. So total flux can be find out by integrating this B bar over area. So total flux can be find out by integrating this B bar over the total area. So total area will be dA bar. Okay, and so rate of change of this B will be equal to the total EMF generated around the loop. Okay, this is as simple as that. So suppose E bar is my electric field and dl bar is my element. Okay, so from that I can write E bar dot product between E bar with the dl bar will be the EMF produced, okay, in this segment. So EMF produced will be equal to the contour integral over the closed loop V bar dl bar, that will be equal to the rate of change of magnetic flux, and the direction will be negative of it. So it will be minus d dt of the flux, so that will be phi. Okay, so which will be total flux enclosed by the loop. Okay, and this also I can write as minus d by dt over this phi. Again, in terms of field strength, I can field density I can write as B bar with dA bar. Now if I look at this equation very carefully, what I can observe, that there are the two ways magnetic field changes. One is what, either flux density will change as a function of time and loop will be constant, so this kind of action will be used in transformer action. And the second will be what, either magnetic field will fixed and area will be changing as a function of time, so that will be used in generator action. Okay. So now here what we will do, we will keep it the magnetic field changing and area fixed constant. Okay. So basically we are here interested for the B, that is magnetic flux density as a function of time, and which will be time varying flux density. So we can write the integral equation as the closed integral with E bar and dl bar, that is equal to minus ddt of the double integral of this flux density with dA bar, which is total flux, and this also I can write as ddt over dB bar for dA. Now I observe that there is a incompatibility, so what I can do, I can convert this contour integral into the surface integral using the Stokes theorem. So apply the Stokes theorem here, and we know Stokes theorem will be used to convert the contour integral into double integral, and that will be represented with curl operator, and that is the reason we have reviewed the curl operator. So this will be curl operator, what it gives, it will be giving me the cross product between the gradient with the vector field, that is E bar, over small area dA bar, and that will be on the right hand side, it will be A with dB bar with dt and dA bar. Okay, and now I can take it everything on one side, so it gives me the double integral over area, so which will be curl operator E bar plus dB over dt into dA bar, and this will be equal to 0, and this will be true for any arbitrary area. Okay, so with this I can write that the curl or the curl of vector field plus dB bar by dt will be equal to 0. Okay, so from that what I can write, it is the cross product between the gradient with the electrical field will be giving me minus dB bar by dt. It is in differential form. So with this we know that electrical field at particular location, if we know, then curl of that electric field gives me the rate of change of magnetic flux density at that particular location. So basically this is the Maxwell's third equation, called Faraday's law of electromagnetic equation. Basically this also I can write in terms of the magnetic field strength also, and we know that the flux density, magnetic flux density, is equal to permeability into magnetic field strength. So curl of the electrical field will be giving me the rate of change of the magnetic field, and which will be mu into h bar, and that also I can write as mu rate of change of the magnetic field strength. Okay, so this is the equation 3. Now let me discuss on the Maxwell fourth equation called modified Ampere's law. And before directly writing it, let me first see the Ampere law or Ampere's current law. So Ampere's current law states that if we have a loop, okay, and some current flowing in this, okay, and so this current will produce the magnetic field. And if I calculate total magnetomotive force or MMF force around the loop, which will be the line integral of magnetic field around that path, then that line integral will be equal to the total current enclosed by this loop. So suppose to do that, let me take it small segment. Suppose this is my area A, this is what the current I, and let me say this is the current density J bar, and this is my contour. Same way there will be magnetic field strength H bar, and let me take it the small area dA bar, which will be moving in this direction. So what will be the MMF for magnetomotive force will be, it will be the dot product between the magnetic field strength with the small length dl, and take it the contour integral, it will be giving me this, and which is equal to, because of the current flowing in it, and that current flowing it also can be written as over the area, which will be the dot product between the current density over the small area dA bar. Okay, so this will be giving me the total current flow inside the loop. Now let me convert, this is my contour, so this is my area. Now let me convert this contour into the surface area, and for that we know we have to apply the Stokes theorem. So this contour integral, which be H bar with dl bar, I can write using Stokes theorem as A, and Stokes theorem we know it will be giving me the curl operation on H. So this is the vector product of the gradient with H bar, and this will be for small area dA bar. Okay, and this will be equal to the total current flow inside the loop, which will be J bar dA. And now I will shift it onto the left hand side everything, so it will be curl of H, okay, minus J bar into dA bar, which will be equal to 0, and this will be valid for any arbitrary area. This is true for any arbitrary area, and if it is the case, then I can write that curl of magnetic field strength will be equal to the electrical current density. But this is however what happened with this equation, Maxwell found some inconsistency in this particular Ampere circuit law. Okay, and the consistency is that this way is basically doesn't satisfy the law of continuity. And what is the law of continuity? That is the divergence of the current density will be equal to negative of rate of change of the charge density. Okay, so divergence of current density, that is the flux coming out from the surface, will be equal to the rate of change of charge density. Okay, so Maxwell found some inconsistency, and that Ampere law is not satisfying this. So Maxwell solved this issue by the use of introduction of the displacement current density, and we know the displacement current density divergence will be giving me the total charge density. This is according to the Gauss law, and we'll keep it in this continuity equation. This is called the continuity equation. Okay, and if I'll put it in this here, so what it will be the dot product between the gradient with the current density, which will be equal to minus the dt of the gradient with d bar. Okay, and from that what I can write, I will integrate over the volume. So if I integrate this over the volume, it will be gradient of J bar plus gradient of d dt of d bar for small volume v, and will be equal to 0. And according to the divergence theorem, again what I can write, I can, according to my convenience, I can do that. Divergence will be used to convert the volume into surface integral or vice versa. So I can write this over the surface. So divergence operator will be removed. So it will be j bar plus dt of d bar over small area will be equal to 0. So this will be valid for all the any arbitrary area. So observe that current, this is the coming out from the surface, which is not only equal to the current density J, but also it will be the rate of change of electrical displacement. Okay. So Maxwell introduced this term, that is the rate of change of electrical displacement, in order to satisfy the continuity equation. And J, we know it is the conduction current. So net current will be equal to the conduction current density plus the displacement current density. So this is called modified Ampere law, and it states that curl of magnetic field strength will be giving me the total current, and which will be the addition of two things, that is the current conduction density plus rate of change of electrical displacement vector. Or also I can write this curl minus ddt of d bar will be giving me j bar. Okay. So it gives the phenomena of electromagnetic induction. Okay. So curl of magnetic field strength and the rate of change of the electrical displacement, and the difference between it will be giving me the current or conduction current density. Okay. So this is my modified Ampere's law. Fine. So with this, let us summarize these four Maxwell equations. So we have seen in the both forms, that is in differential form and the integral form. So differential form and integral form. So first was the divergence of this electrical field density will be giving me the total amount of charges present in it enclosed by the surface, and integral form we can write as the closed contour over surface, which will be d bar dA bar will be equal to the total number of charges present inside this volume. Okay. Second is for magnetism. So what it says that says that the divergence of B bar, that is the net magnetic flux coming out from the surface, will be equal to 0. And how to write an integral form? If I'll take it the contour integral over surface area, so dot product between the flux density with the small area dA will be equal to 0. This is second. Third is the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. So it will be, while there will be the curl experienced by the electrical field, which will be equal to the negative of rate of change of magnetic flux density. And integral form, how can you write? It will be EMF, which will be E bar into dl bar over contour or closed loop will be equal to the surface integral for the rate of change of B bar with small area d, and which will be negative of it. Okay. This is the third law called Faraday's law of EMF. Now fourth law is called modified Ampere law, and this is if there is the curl on H, that is magnetic field strength, which will be, this effect will be equal to the current, which will be the addition of two terms, that is the conduction current density plus the rate of change of electrical displacement vector. Okay. And in integral form you can write as the contour integral over H bar with dl bar. This will be giving me the magnetomotive force, and which will be equal to surface integral total current, which will be current conduction density plus the rate of change of the displacement vector for small area dA. So all this is valid for static as well as time varying fields. So this is what the Maxwell equation is. Now if you look at this, what this is giving me, this is giving me the overall field interpretation for the electrical and for the basically electrical and magnetic field. Okay. So what is this? With this, the Maxwell suggested that the electrical and magnetic phenomena can be explained in terms of fields, and which results basically from two things, that is the charge and current. Okay. So if this is the case, then question may come in our mind that what is the necessity to study the circuit theory course. It is because extraction of this required information from these governing four equations will turn out to be formidable mathematical task even for simple electrical systems. So this task in Maxwell equation involves the partial differential equation, and which involves the function of time and space variable in 3D. Okay. So this will be quite complicated for the both way, that is according to imagination as well as according to the mathematical solution. Okay. So again we should have something so that again we can understand the real physical electrical system in a easy way. So to understand this, circuit theory is a course which is a special kind of approximation of this electromagnetic field theory. Okay. So basically in circuit theory we don't have to study the partial differential equation. Circuit theory will convert is the approximation, and from that approximation it will convert your ordinary differential partial differential equation into ordinary differential equation, and it will only consist of ordinary differential equations. Okay. And if it is the case, we know the solutions by which we can solve it with ease. And practically circuit is also the most elegant and easy way to understand and design. So in this, in general, we are interested in two terms, voltage and currents, than this electrical and magnetic fields. Okay. So the circuit favors the analysis in terms of voltage and currents, from which we can compute other quantities also, such as charges, energy, power, etc. if required also. Okay. So now from the next class, now we will look the understanding in circuit theory perspective. So with this we stop here. Thank you very much.